Does IoT actually create a low-hanging fruit which increases incentives for those attackers to attack those devices?
So the first one is interesting where you're saying, hey, we have all of these devices in our network at home. And essentially now what we have is we have Amazon devices, we have Google devices, we have your cell phone, etc. And the point being is any one of those devices can be compromised. The key thing there is what you get to is a situation of a beachhead, right? So once someone's got access to a component of your network and they've entered the network, now you're in a really interesting position because at that point they can spend their time looking at what else is going on. And then from there, what they can do is determine what other computers you've got in your network. So one of the things you can do, right, is that you can start looking at the way in which you think about the structure of your network. And actually, there's a lot of companies now that are starting to realize that having one network in your house is a bit of a problem because then everything can communicate with everything else. And so one of the things that people are starting to look at now is saying, well, look, I want a separate network for all of my sensors. And then my PCs are on a different network entirely. But the problem with that is it's actually quite complicated to set up for the average user. So you have this really interesting balance, right, between access and simplicity and on the other side, security, because a truly secure network isn't a network. You just take it off the network. So this is part of the problem, right, is this where people turn around and go, oh, my network must be secure. And you go, well, actually, as soon as you make it a network, it can't be, right? But then the other aspect of it is that if you look at it from this point of view, one of the things that you can do, which is becoming, I think, more prevalent where people are starting to realize these things, is that they're increasing the quality of the passwords. They're also starting now people are becoming aware of there are so many devices in their network that are sensing them, monitoring them, and doing things. And the question then is, what is happening with that data? Because now you have to break it into two sides. You've got the bad side, which is the attacker, the cyber attacker who wears a hoodie. But then on the other side, you have where that data is being sent and where it's being used, right? So if you think of it this way, you actually have two sets of policies. One set of things is that if the person is developing the service and selling it to you, you need to be very aware of what you're agreeing to and where that data is being sent. And then the other aspect of it is that, if you're a person of interest, i.e. a politician or someone a public figure, what happens is as you become more popular, you become more attacked, right? So the example that I give to people is that when you think about what's going on in the network today, most people go, well, I'm completely safe. And I go, in general, you are because you're not interesting. And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, a lot of people argue that because they're not interesting, no one will attack them. And I said, that's actually not true. What really happens is that what people are looking for is weaknesses in the network or weaknesses in the devices. Once they've found those weaknesses, then they attack the weakness, but they don't go after a particular company. It's a very famous example of one hacker, and what they did was they scanned the entire internet for a particular form of firewall that they knew hadn't been patched by Dell. And then they took all of the firewalls that were identified and they scanned for the word Cayman in the domain address, right? And the reason they did that is they were looking for a Cayman Island bank. So then they got into the bank and they transferred £200,000 out the bank. Yeah? And so the beauty of it is they weren't actually looking for that particular bank. They were just looking for the weakness. So when you think of it that way, one of the things you have to start thinking about now is saying, okay, I have a network. How do I secure the data on the network? What are the things that I really care about? And as soon as you take that approach, you can protect the data, but you can't protect the network. So, for example, I always tell people, say, look, if you have information on your network or on your storage, you've got to encrypt it. Secondly, the other thing you've got to worry about is the fact that certain information you never want to leave on a computer because of the simple reason is that information is important. And even simpler, I turn around to people and say, when they ask you all of these questions about, what's your favorite dog? where did you grow up? I always make the answers untrue. And the reason for that is a lot of the information now is so public that when you're securing a device, if you actually say where you grew up, they can look that up and use it against you. So what you want to do is just make up the information.